Hi there, Jack Sullivan here, and today we're going to talk about anti-vaxxers and measles. A lot of claims have been made about measles and the MMR vaccine, and fraudulent claims about links to autism. And I think it's really important that we address these claims uh, objectively and educate the public because we are currently facing public health crisis centering around the resurgence of the measles virus. Now, to start, let's talk about measles. The history of measles is well documented, both statistically and firsthand documentation of the effects of the disease. The disease has been around since time immemorial, and it is a highly infectious disease that is caused by the measles virus. It's an airborne disease. It spreads in the same way that the flu does. That is, that infected individuals sneezing and coughing infects other individuals. Not only is it highly infectious, but it causes deadly complications often. There's no specific treatment for the disease. Complications including pneumonia and seizures can be fatal. Now, historically speaking, this disease has killed millions, especially children, elderly, and persons with weaker immune systems. In 1980, 2.6 million persons estimated died across the world from measles. Historically, the measles vaccine that was developed and licensed in 1964 has been highly effective in combating the spread of the measles virus. United States measles cases peaked at 800,000 in 1954, but in the past decade, circa 2010, 2011, cases were only in the 50s and 60s. Now, there has been a terrible resurgence in this virus, which is affecting children and elderly people much in the same way that it did historically. Recently, upwards of 1,000 cases have been documented in the past 6 months of 2019 alone. So this raises questions. Why has measles come back in the United States? There is a cultural movement that originated with a man named Andrew Wakefield, a British physician who published a 1998 article in The Lancet, a peer-reviewed medical journal in England. Wakefield and his anti-vax allies put forth a study that vaccines are linked to autism. This has since been proven completely fraudulent and incorrect, and as a result, Wakefield has been barred from practicing medicine. But the damage of this study and of this idea, this cultural movement persists. Today, 1 in 5 Americans under the age of 30 believe that childhood vaccinations can cause autism. That is anti-scientific, anti-intellectual, and speaks to a disconnect between the scientific community and the young American public. Nobody should believe that childhood vaccinations can cause autism. It has been thoroughly debunked. And unfortunately, because young persons believe that childhood vaccinations can cause autism, they are not vaccinating their children. These are the very same children who are being infected with measles. Now, it's fair to say that America has a measles crisis. In the year 2000, scientific community and the CDC declared that the measles virus was eradicated and eliminated in the United States. Well, that is not the reality today. Uh, in the past 6 months of 2019, the CDC has reported 1,022 new cases of measles across the country. This is a highly politically and socially divisive subject in certain communities, and it is inexorably linked to American government and politics. Some writers, like Washington Post columnist Catherine Rampel, have highlighted how instrumental government policy has been both in the eradication of measles in the early 2000s and in the resurgence, as public figures, right-wing and libertarian politicians have espoused anti-vaxxer ideology with consequences. It's fair to say that the pseudoscience that is anti-vax ideology carries cultural weight today. Now, a multitude of public figures have subscribed to and spread the anti-vaccination narrative. But the most damaging is when political figures espouse anti-vaxxer ideology. One example is Senator Rand Paul, a libertarian Republican politician from Kentucky. Now, Paul has repeatedly railed against government-mandated vaccines, and his arguments center around questions of personal liberty and constitutional freedoms. But more problematic than that is that Paul believes that it is wrong to say that there are no risks to vaccines. That is completely incorrect. The CDC has asserted time and time again, and these are scientists with extensive experience with vaccines, who know the history, who are, in every sense of the word, the authorities on this. The vaccines can cause side effects, but that the damage caused by not immunizing a child is so much worse for the public health in general than any potential small side effects, whether it's a fever or a cold, that a vaccine could bring about. Now, it's highly problematic when a figure like Paul makes these claims because he has direct influence on legislation revolving around biotechnology and vaccines in specific. Figures like Paul need to be educated about the reality of vaccines and about the complete lunacy of linking vaccines to autism so that they can do right by their constituents and by the American public in general. When figures like Paul espouse anti-vax ideology, it leads directly to the resurgence in measles that we've seen today because parents see these figures as an authority and make the choice not to vaccinate their children at their peril. Now the question remains of what to do. The measles crisis has entered the public conscience. Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, who has historically been a proponent of anti-vaxxer ideology and propaganda, as seen in his Twitter a variety of times, has addressed the measles crisis recently and stated that Americans need to be vaccinated and that this crisis needs to be combated and that it is detrimental to the health of the public. And I've linked the video to him answering questions revolving around vaccination. And I think the most important thing in combating these claims about links between vaccination and autism and this anti-scientific, anti-intellectual movement is there needs to be outreach between the scientific community and the public. The public needs to understand biotechnology and needs to understand how and why vaccines work. And tools for that can be public outreach through media, through internet media. There's a variety of ways that this can happen, but it needs to happen because this crisis needs to be remedied as soon as possible so that children are not infected and hurt and possibly killed by diseases that we have effective preventative measures for, like measles. So I've attached a video of Dr. Cornelia Decker of Stanford giving a very good, very thorough, succinct explanation of how and why vaccines work. And I just want to thank you for watching my presentation. I've attached my sources in a slide at the end of the video, and I hope it's been informative and educational and as fair as could be given the subject matter. So thank you.